So what kind of like deadlines are there, or things within the calendar year that I need to be aware of so I can time my requests so that you're going to have enough time to be able to look at this and say, yeah, it makes sense or it doesn't make sense, and give me the approval for what I'm asking.
Well, I would hope if an area really wanted to move forward with a new recruitment based on a strategic plan that says, hey, I want to grow or I want to add this service, and they're looking to recruit at least maybe from more of a fellowship pool, someone coming right out, they'd want to know in the fall, because ideally that fellowship interview period is probably starting in the fall and maybe ending in the winter time, time frame. So just to bring in candidates, you'd want to be able to make sure that you have an approved position. So I would start, yes, kind of as the year starting, working within your department, understanding what strategically we want to do and what it's going to take to do that. Now, there's obviously situations where you might be looking to recruit someone that is more of an opportunistic thing where they're not necessarily coming out of a training program, they maybe are just a local candidate or coming from a different market. So the timing on that could be a little bit different. But I ideally say in any model, if you want to grow, you'd want to know in the fall that you want to do this for the next fiscal year, which would start in July. And then from that standpoint, go through the internal approval process to get that recruitment approved. And that would be you as a department putting together a pro forma that ideally puts together all the things that we've been talking about. Who do I want to bring on? What are the costs associated with that? What's the type of revenue that we'd expect? What's the ramp up on that? And ideally come up with this, what I'd call a 3-year plan for that recruit. And then from that standpoint, that would go to the organizational approval process to get approved, and then ideally the recruitment then can start.
All right, so give me like a best case scenario. I have a great idea, and it's the first of a month, right? How fast can we do just what you articulated? Like how fast can I sign you with, Shaun, this is a great idea, here's what I need to do, right? What do you think is a fair amount of time for me, like a reasonable time to say, is it 1 month, is it 2 months? Well, when can I actually get the approval to say, yes, go ahead and send a letter of intent off to this guy and get him in here?
Well, I think, you as a department will create the sense of urgency, but I would say it falls into 2 categories. If it's a category where you're not having to bring on a lot of additional resources or request a lot of capital, you could probably start it in the early part of the fall and get it approved in the fall. So I'd say from start to finish, a month to month and a half.
Okay.
And that's where the chair of the area is signing off. That's where you're meeting with the various missions within an organization, whether it's the medical group aspect, the hospital aspect, the research aspect, to get all of those various signs of approval as well. And then being able to actually recruit for that person. And that piece, again, just depending on the competitive nature of that specialty, it may need to start earlier than others. It needs to pivot off of that as well. But for a recruit that may require a lot of additional resources to be put into the model to be built, where they might require to renovate space, where you now have to find space. Then you have to put together a construction timeline and estimates around what it would cost from an equipment standpoint. Those are projects that could take 3 months. And that's just to get the whole plan kind of going before you even sort of maybe start that official recruitment or not. But again, if something is opportunistic or for an organization it's a great idea, people can mobilize to get that going a lot quicker, but to do it under a time frame that allows the right checks and balances to get all the different parties involved, I'd say the quickest you could turn something around would be, maybe 30 to 45 days.
Okay, all right.
And that's pretty fast, I'd say.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think, for replacements, that's usually the easiest thing.
Yes, if it's a straight replacement, that would fly through just based on, evaluating, this is still a need, but also just evaluating that, from an investment standpoint, it's like situations in the past.
Right, and then for novel ideas, something we're doing different, that just gets more complicated.
Exactly.
So it's really going to take a lot more information to be able to make a good choice.
Yeah, ideally, if what you're looking to expand is aligned strategically with what the growth initiatives would be, then it can move along a lot quicker because, as an organization, if our area is to focus on a certain number of areas and this is aligned with that, is a great idea, obviously we want to continue to create those types of catalysts to grow the organization.
Okay. All right, so last question. Another thing that's come up a couple times in the course of my career here, is I have a great idea. And I've identified a need that our patients need or our staff needs. And I'm able to actually make a pretty articulate case for why we should move in this direction. But resources are limited, and we can't move in every direction all the time, right? So I've had a couple projects that get rejected for a variety of reasons. Not that they're bad ideas or not that they can't be successful. What are your recommendations to me? Because if I'm able to identify that my patients need something, well, they need it. And how do I like shelve this, or how do I get it so that I can go back to it another day and take another swing? Try to get the thing done in another day when maybe it's time to it's a better time for that kind of project.
Yeah, I mean, I would think with any request that comes up, I mean, ideally it's never going to fall the right calendar cycle that you can sort of get it approved and hopefully get it included. But if something comes up mid-year that is an important thing, I mean, ideally it's helping to build that justification, not only from the benefits that it would provide, whether it improves quality, patient safety, helps us grow in an area right now where we're capacity constrained, or allows us to expand in an area that we don't have. But ideally, I mean, it's building that case, including all the things that go along with it. So does it require capital? Does it require operating expenses going forward? Does it need to have multiple different areas support it? Is it strategically aligned? So I guess the case for the individual is building that case and being able to show all the different things that go along with it, and hopefully being able to provide that message to leadership to help get that approved. The challenge is that just like your great idea, many different people have great ideas. So it's a difficult situation to be in, that we have multiple areas to evaluate, and from that we can only pick a handful based on available resources, whether it's dollars or just institutional bandwidth and capacity to get stuff done. So that's the hard part. So, I mean, all ideas obviously are great in some form or another, but yeah, it's definitely a balancing act. I'll give you one example. From the capital standpoint, what we're able to support from a capital standpoint probably has $1 available for every $3 that are asked. So that just means that from that standpoint, a smaller group of projects are going to move forward just based on our institutional ability to support certain different things.
All right, so can I ask you this? I'm sorry, I said the last question, but I have one more question, right? All right, so can you give me some tips on? So I was one of the $2 of requests that we didn't have.
Yeah.
Right, but I'm going to come back to you next year. What's my time frame? How should I package this to get it to you so that I have a better chance the next year or the year after that to get the project done?
Got it. So the current timing, if this is a capital request, those business plans, like what's involved supporting that capital, ideally should be completed and hopefully been given sort of the checkoff from your leadership in that area prior to December.
Okay.
And that way, in the month between December and the end of January, those individuals can put those projects forward to be considered for prioritization.
Okay.
And that's when the institutional right now is evaluating all the different projects that we have. So thus, we can then, as an institution, come back to you by March and say, your project's been green-lit. Here is now the operating support that is needed to be incorporated into your budget, which would then be done between March and April. So the timing is capital goes first, whatever gets approved, then we get the operating support that's required for it that could be incorporated into the next fiscal year.
So prior to December 1st.
Yeah.
Is ideal. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that way, you as you first say you as a local area can highlight your priorities. Those priorities can then be elevated to the person that would oversee that area, and then those can be put into the overall institutional request list. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Shaun.
Yeah.
Super helpful. I
No
appreciate
worries.
it. All right.
Take care.